Hey, what's up, Journey? I know it's been a super long time since you guys have probably seen my face. For those of you that aren't members and don't probably know me, my name is Jesus Vera. I'm an intern pastor over at Journey SDA. But check it out, guys. I haven't been around for like the past couple weeks or the last couple last couple months, if we're being honest, just because when COVID hit really strong and everyone kind of just had to, California kind of just shut down, right? I had to go back home. As you guys know, I'm a student at La Sierra University. I had to go back home, and school was just got so stressful out of nowhere, just having to do school online. So I appreciate Pastor Adam kind of just letting me just focus on school. Probably you guys are wondering, well, what are you doing here, bro? Like, where's Pastor Adam? It's Tuesday. It's time for some Rutabagas of the Spirit. It's Tuesday. Like, what is going on? We've been diving into this book, Inspired. What are you doing here, bro? Well, hold up, guys. Well, actually, you see, Pastor Adam is using this week as he just really wants to spend some time with his family, and rest. And so, now that I'm done with school, he kind of asked me if I could hop on this whole week. So, guys, this whole week is a whole week with Jesus over at Journey SDA. Starting today all the way up until Sabbath, you guys are going to see a lot of content produced from me, from my very own room here at my house. So I'm very excited. But yeah, guys, it's Tuesdays. It's time for some Rutabagas of the Spirit. If you've been keeping up with our content page over either on Facebook or YouTube, primarily YouTube, that's kind of where Pastor Adam and Miss Cassandra have really just been posting these Rutabagas of the Spirit. They've been going over this book called Inspired by Rachel Held Evans. It's a really dope book. Every week they've been diving, they've been going into each chapter and just really just having a detailed discussion about it, going in deep, and just talking about some of the ways that this book can apply to us as Christians today. I personally don't have the book, so I won't be talking about a specific chapter from that book today. If you don't have the book, I highly encourage you guys to get it. I've been watching these Rutabagas of the Spirit, and just the discussions by Pastor Adam and Miss Cassandra have been phenomenal. They've really been eye-opening, and they really just inspired me to take action as a Christian, as a Seventh-day Adventist, to further educate myself and things like that. So I encourage you guys to get the book out. Check out some of our last Rutabagas of the Spirit. But today, guys, I will be talking about a book, because that's the whole point of Rutabagas of the Spirit, guys, right? We want to learn how we can grow as Christians, practical ways that we can grow as Christians, and how we can take some of these different readings and apply them to our lives today as Christians. So I've actually been reading this book right here, God of the Oppressed by James Cone. Yo, this book is, if you don't know who James Cone is, man, James Cone is basically one of the leading prominent African American theologians of our last like 2-3 decades, right? Famous black theologian here in America, and just his work is amazing. Just real quick, in the times that we're living in right now, I think it's really important that as believers that we educate ourselves, right? I think it's really important that, yes, we dive into scripture more intentionally and more deeper, but that we also pick up some of these other books so that we can educate ourselves. So I've been reading this book, God of the Oppressed. And I've been reading this book called Killing Rage, Ending Racism. And just these two books hand in hand are really good. This one is more theological. This one is more talking about the systematic racism in our nation, and how that applies to us today. And no, I'm not just showing you my books so I can flex or nothing like that. But guys, it is important that we educate ourselves, that we're reading these things so that we know how to further, right, expand the kingdom of God. I haven't finished this book. I'm barely on chapter 4. Chapter 4 will be on biblical revelation and social existence. I'm really excited for that one, because we kind of talked about revelation in the last Rutabagas of the Spirit. Again, go check it out, guys. It was super fire. But chapter 3, I was about the social context of theology. chapter 2 was about speaking the truth, and then chapter 1 was kind of this introduction. And guys, basically what this whole book about, God of the Oppressed, like I said, James Cone is an African-American leading theologian, black theologian, and so a lot of his work is centered around this concept called liberation theology, right? Really just focusing in on how God is how God is perceived as the Exodus God, right? The God that liberates, and how God actually we can find God in our experiences of struggle and suffering, and how God is calling us as Christians to fight for liberation, right? To fight for freedom, and how God is moving us towards that liberation, right? Towards that liberation from Egypt, and into the promised land. So that's just a really quick highlight. Just, if you're a theologian, if you've done your black theology or your liberation theology work, go ahead, go to the comments, let us know what you think about all this. But today I want to talk about chapter 2. Chapter 2 is titled Speaking the Truth. I'm gonna just pick up a couple stuff, highlight a couple stuff, and then just talk about it, how it applies to us as Christians today. Something super practical. This video won't be super long. It's not like when Pastor Adam and Miss Cassandra get to dialogue back and forth. I don't have a dialogue partner. Technically, you guys are my dialogue partners, but I can't hear you guys. So if you want to dialogue with me, go to the comments and be like, yo, Jesus, you're the best intern pastor. Yo, Jesus, you're so much better than Pastor Adam. Yo, Jesus, can you be my pastor? I'm just playing, guys. Leave some comments down what you guys think about what we're going to talk about today. I'm not going to give like a detailed summary of what chapter 2 was about. I'm going to just pick up some stuff, read some couple things, and then I'm going to talk about it. So chapter 2, Speaking the Truth, starts with this idea, starts with this poem, actually. And I want to read it to you guys, and then we can talk about it just for a little bit. So it goes like this. Speak the truth to the people. Talk sense to the people. Free them with reason. Free them with honesty. Free the people with love and courage and care for their being. Man, right off the bat, that right there is already telling us what our job as Christians is today, right? It's telling us we have to speak this truth to the people. We have to free them with reason, free them with honesty, free the people with love and courage and care. And I'm gonna get to this idea of what that truth is. What does it mean to speak truth to someone? But right now I want to talk about this idea of freeing people with love, courage, and care. I know we're kind of in the midst of this battle for freedom, right? We kind of live in this nation that is all about this land of the free, but its actions are definitely portraying the complete opposite, right? It's definitely portraying that this is not the land of the free. And yet, when the James Cone starts off chapter 2 with this poem that says, free the people with love and courage and care. Growing up as a Christian, as a Seventh-day Adventist, I heard this idea of lot, right? Of loving people, of caring for people. But what sticks out to me is this idea of courage, this word courage, this concept courage. I heard love and care, right? Love your neighbor, care for your neighbor, right? The parable of the Good Samaritan. I heard that all a lot. We hear about God loving and God with us, but I don't think we emphasize this idea of the courage of God, of the freedom that comes with that courage that God gives us. And I think we're living in a time right now where yes, we're called to love. Yes, we're called to care, but more importantly, we're called to be courageous. It can be scary sometimes to stand up in the midst of injustice, in the midst of racism, in the midst of suffering, and stand up and say, no more, right? I get it. It can be scary, but that's the courage that God is calling us to. God is calling us to be courageous. You know how many times Jesus had to stand up in the face of injustice? And I want to beg to differ. Maybe it was kind of scary for Jesus sometimes, but Jesus did it anyways. And I think that's what Jesus is calling us today. He's calling us to have that boldness, that holy courage to stand up, to put our chest out, right? And to say, no, this is not going to be okay. We're not going to keep oppressing our black brothers and sisters, right? We're not going to keep oppressing our women in churches. We're not going to keep oppressing someone just because you don't like the way they talk, the way they sound, the way they dress, right? That's the courage that God is calling us to. So that's one thing that stuck out to me right off the bat. It starts with that poem, and I really wanted to center in that word courage and encourage you guys to be courageous, right? Now I kind of want to talk about this idea. Like I said, one of the things that James Cone really focuses on, right? I'm only on chapter 4, but it's really evident and really prominent that James Cone really drives this idea of Jesus being the liberating God, of God being the Exodus God, of Jesus being the healing God. He really makes that really clear. And so I want to talk about, I want to read a quick 2 or 3 sentences from page 32. And it goes like this. He is the eternal event of liberation in the divine person who makes freedom a constituent of human existence. There is no existence apart from him because he is the ground of existence without whom nothing is. Therefore, where human beings struggle for freedom and refuse to be defined by unauthorized earthly authorities, there Jesus Christ is present among them. His presence is a sustaining and liberating event in the lives of the oppressed that makes possible the continued struggle for freedom. Yo, guys, that was fire. I'm going to try to break it down just in case you didn't catch that. And I'll start like this. I know a lot of the times, right, we see what's going on. We see the fight for social equality, right? We see the Black Lives Matter going strong. And I just want to drop this in here really quick. Black Lives Matter yesterday, today, and tomorrow. Guys, we cannot be tired of saying that as Christians. So we're seeing all that going on. We're seeing the injustices that are happening in our border. We see the suffering that's happening around the world. We see the inhumanities, the people dying from hunger. We see, coronavirus leaving its mark all across the globe. It can be kind of hard, and it can honestly be kind of hard to believe this, to believe that God is a liberating God, to believe that God is a healing God. Sometimes it could even be hard just to believe in this idea of God in itself, right? But I want to focus and just kind of make this full 360 back to this Black Lives Matter movement and talk about why God is still present. James Cone says, where human beings struggle for freedom and refuse to be defined by unauthorized earthly authorities, there Jesus Christ is present among them. I was on Instagram like 2 weeks ago, and I saw this picture, like this little quote that said, the most diverse church in the world is meeting right now, and it's in the streets. And that to me just blew my mind because it made so much sense. It made so much sense. And then that's basically what James Cone is saying here. Anytime people are being courageous, anytime people are being loving, anytime people are being caring, and they're being courageous and standing in the midst of suffering, standing in the midst of racial injustice, standing in the midst of famine, standing in the midst of pain, there is where you're gonna find Jesus. Anytime you find the good within the bad, there you'll find Jesus. Jesus is always moving in the midst of pain and suffering. And the question we have to ask ourselves, if we can find Jesus there, then where should we be as Christians? Should we not be with Jesus? Should we not be where Jesus is? Should we not be standing in the middle? Should we not be taking a courageous stance? Should we not be right there, right along Jesus, saying no to all these sufferings and all this pain happening around the world? Or are we called as Christians just to be on the other side and just to keep awaiting the second kingdom? I get it, guys, and I know what you guys are saying. Whoa, intern, relax. Like, where's Pastor Adam? I get it. I understand. But this just weighs really heavy on me because for a long time, I grew up in a church where all that was talked about was this idea of the second coming. This idea that one day, right, one day in the future, Jesus will come back, restore things, make all things new, and redeem us and wipe away all our tears. But what I hardly heard was what happens between the now and the then. You know, what are we called to do between the then, the now, and the then? And I think with this idea of the second coming, I think what's more important, and I think we find that in scriptures, what's more important is what we're doing in that time. And we need to be getting closer to Jesus. And if getting closer to Jesus means being courageous and taking a stance against these injustices, then I don't think we have another choice. Yes, we can await the second kingdom. Yes, we can await the future glory. But we must also be taking action right now, because Jesus is taking action. Jesus is alive, and Jesus is moving, and Jesus is calling us to join him, right? To join him to put an end to all this suffering, to put an end to all this injustice. And these are just some of the things that are just sticking out to me as I read this chapter called Speaking the Truth. And just to further elaborate on that, James Cone is asking the same questions, right? He's asking, what actions deny the truth disclosed in Jesus Christ? Where should the line be drawn? Can the Church of Jesus Christ be racist and Christian at the same time? Can the Church of Jesus Christ be politically, socially, and economically identified with the structures of oppression and also be a servant of God? Can the Church of Jesus Christ fail to make the liberation of the poor the center of its message and work and still remain faithful to its Lord? And I think that's a question that we have to be asking ourselves every single day. We have to vividly point out what mistakes the church has made and what are some solutions that can solve it. Guys, for me, I'm happy and I'm blessed that I get to work in a church, right? Journey SDA, that has that courage, that decides to take a stance, that decides that, hey, we're gonna be on the right side. We're gonna be on the side of the liberation of the poor. And that is going to be the center of our message. Guys, I can reassure you right now, if you're watching this, that you're in a good place. That Journey SDA is a church that knows where we need to be, that knows where we need to go, and that is currently fighting for the liberation of all people. And that just leads me to one of the final things, right? This chapter started with the poem and it also ends with the poem. The last little phrase goes like this: speak the truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Free the mind of the people. Speak to the mind of the people. Speak truth. Speak truth to the people. To identify the enemy is to free the mind. Guys, we have an enemy that's roaming around the globe. We have an enemy that's in our churches, that's in our minds, and if we want to give that enemy a name right now, it's racism, guys. The enemy is racism, and we're called to be a people, we're called to be believers, we're called to be Christians that speak to that enemy, that free the mind of the people. And ultimately, guys, the question that we have to ask ourselves, well, what is that truth? I understand what you're saying, I get it, James Cone is dope, but what's that truth? What is it? Well, you want to know what the truth is. The truth is the empty tomb. The truth is the empty cross. The truth is the fact that Jesus Christ continues to live, that Jesus Christ continues to exist, that Jesus Christ continues to create, that Jesus Christ is calling us to live and exist and create alongside with them. That the truth is that Jesus Christ is a liberating God. The truth is that Jesus Christ is the God of Exodus. The truth is that Jesus does stand in the midst of suffering, pain, racial injustice, famines, just injustice everywhere. Jesus Christ stands in the middle of that, and with love, with care, but most importantly, God stands with courage, right? He stands with courage. He takes a stance, and the truth is that he's calling us to that truth, right? He's calling us to proclaim, to free the enemy, to free the minds of the people, to free to speak truth. That's ultimately the truth. The truth is not, and I'll tell you what the truth is not. The truth is not someone putting their knee on someone's neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. The truth is not someone coming into your bedroom and just letting and just shooting without knowing who's on the other side, right? The truth isn't kids locked in cages. The truth isn't this war happening in Yemen. The truth isn't the lies that this country has been feeding us. The truth isn't the current people in power. The truth isn't even found in our political systems at all. It's not found on the left side or on the right side. It's not found in that. The truth is found solely in Jesus Christ. And once we really believe that, once we take that to our hearts, then we can begin to live out that truth. We can begin to start freeing the minds of other people. And really, guys, that's all I have for you guys this afternoon. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like I said, I'm not done with this book at all, but these are some of the things that I've been learning so far, and I just wanted to share that with you guys this evening. And other than that, guys, make sure to leave a like, to leave a comment, and just hit subscribe. And if you're watching this on Facebook, then just make sure to repost this, give it a like, and all that good stuff. And I appreciate you guys for being with me, and I love you guys. And remember, always speak truth. And I love you, and God loves you.